Across the fence, there's no time to waste. Vermont students get their hands dirty as they sort out complex problems around trash. We'll learn what they found and how they're making a difference in their communities. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Reduce, reuse, recycle is the mantra, but there's always more to be done when it comes to minimizing what ends up in our landfills. To raise awareness about important environmental issues like trash disposal, UVM Extension 4-H initiated a program to increase environmental literacy. The latest effort involves Vermont students who are developing action plans to reduce the waste generated at their schools. As Keith Silva tells us, the 4-H model of hands-on learning was front, center, and messy during a recent waste audit in Lamoille County.
Digging through a bag of garbage brings a new perspective to the idea of hands-on learning.
There was like 5 corn dog sticks and like tons of oranges and things and a lot of coffee cups and everything. You never expect we have so much trash.
A lot of our things we had in the trash were all wet and icky and they got everywhere and the whole room smelled really bad and it made me kind of queasy.
These Vermont elementary, middle, and high school students are conducting a waste audit. First, each bag of garbage is weighed.
It's in the middle of 5, 10, 15.
And then the students sort through the contents to determine what can be or could have been recycled or composted instead of being thrown away.
I learned how much we threw away. That one group that had compost, they had 20% of their trash bag was compost. That's a lot.
Lots of people just put things into the trash that don't go there, like things that could be recycled or composted. So we were like sorting them out into the right piles to help.
The waste audit was part of an all-day workshop about waste reduction initiatives. It's part of the University of Vermont Extension 4-H TRI program, short for Teens Reaching Youth. It's a multi-age environmental education program.
What are you doing as you go through your trash?
UVM Extension 4-H Teen and Leadership Specialist Lauren Traster leads the TRI program.
I'm really passionate about the environment, and I came up with the tagline "Try for the Environment," and I thought it would be a nice extension to add and build off of our Youth Environmental Summit that we do, but also through that program I've made some connections with other environmental organizations in the state.
For this project, Traster is partnering with the Lamoille Regional Solid Waste District to get the word out about reducing the waste stream. This workshop lines up with Act 148, Vermont's universal recycling law, which goes into effect in July 2015.
It's not like as if you can put that in the recycling bin. It doesn't go through a recycling system.
To get students to think about what they can do to reduce, reuse, and recycle, Traster brought in PLAN, the Post-Landfill Action Network. Alex Freed is the group's founder and director.
Waste is a fundamentally solvable problem. It's a fascinating problem in that there's so many aspects to it and there's so many roles that people can play, but on its whole, it is a fundamentally solvable problem. Waste is just resources in the wrong place. And helping people to kind of understand that and think about their everyday consumption choices, think about like where they're throwing stuff away and why it matters and where it goes and also what they can be doing differently, and then to think about it from a systemic perspective. You know, what are the systems that need to be put in place to avoid these challenges that we're facing?
Freed's message to the students is clear. You can make a difference.
The takeaway for everybody is that whole concept of the nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Like when we talked about the bigger picture issues, the plastic pollution in the oceans, right? Like the issues of landfills, the issues of incinerators, those can feel really overwhelming. And figuring out how to break down those really, really big problems into you can make a difference in your community is really, I think, what's most important and what they can walk away with and how they can kind of take that information back to their community and figure out how they can make a difference in their community.
Go ahead and take that picture. Take whatever.
Faye Cristoforo also works for PLAN. For her, waste management is about making sure people know they have choices when it comes to what they're throwing away.
You have to learn how to recycle. You also have to have the opportunity to recycle. Because if you only have a trash can, then all you have is trash. you have to have an avenue for recycling to even be an option.
This training is the first of a two-part process. Once the students are back at school, they'll begin to work with teachers and administrators to develop strategies to reduce the waste stream in their schools. The 6th grade team from People's Academy Middle Level in Morrisville is led by Bill Fischel.
To do this well, we've got to put these kids in the driver's seat. They're going to lead this recycling program. If not, it won't work. As soon as the bags opened up with our trash audit, they were as grossed out as they ever had been, but the smiles were still on their faces and they wanted to try to accomplish the right thing. There's a lot of training that needs to take place. There's a lot of education that still needs to happen, but I definitely view myself as kind of the guide on the side, the cheerleader, and I look to them to kind of direct what we're going to do with the school. I don't think they have the tolerance for this not to work.
These students heard the message loud and clear. When it comes to reducing waste, the time is now.
When we don't recycle, garbage can go into like the ocean, and the animals will eat it, and it kills the animals. And now the garbage is starting to go into freshwater lakes. So
if we don't recycle, then our world will just become one big trash heap. And landfills hurt the environment. They're just big pits of trash, and they're covered up, and it's really bad when landfills are put in. So we should recycle, and we should compost as much as we can, and we should try to close the loop.
Reduce, reuse, recycle. It's a messy job, but somebody's got to do it. Check that. Everybody's got to do it. In Hyde Park, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Well, thank you, Keith. Joining me now are two guests. Lauren Traister is the UVM Extension Teen and Leadership Program Coordinator, and Ellie Ventura is the Outreach and Communications Coordinator of the Lamoille Regional Solid Waste Management District. Thanks to both of you. So, Lauren, when the waste audit was over and everyone got cleaned up, what was the response from students?
You know, the thing that really surprised both Ellie and I is we had the students actually reflect on their training experience, and overwhelmingly the students were really surprised that we only have a recycling rate of 30 to 34%. In their view, they thought everybody recycled and that the rate would have been much higher. So they were really surprised by that statistic. And the other thing that they were not aware of is that Vermont only has one active landfill. So they're now putting this together and understanding that we're creating more and more trash, and we have fewer and fewer places to actually put that trash. So they walked away realizing that there is a problem and that solutions need to happen.
And so now the waste audit is over, what do the young people do next?
Yeah, so as part of this program, the video clip that we show, we train them how to do waste audits. They actually have to go back to their school and do a waste audit in their school to assess what the problem is in their particular school environment. From what they learn from their waste audit, each team will create an action plan to take recyclables out of that trash, take compostables out of that trash. They'll develop an action plan. We're actually going to give them some money to implement their action plan, and we luckily got a grant from the State Farm Youth Advisory Board to award these funds to the schools. They'll implement their plan, and then they'll do a follow-up waste audit to see the results and see if they actually started to make a difference. And hopefully this will then set some behavior changes and some systemic changes at their schools to make a real difference.
Ellie, give us some specifics about Act 148. It's the new universal recycling law. What does it do, and what are some of the key things that people need to know about this new law?
So the universal recycling law was passed unanimously by our legislator in 2012, and it's actually one of the first laws since Act 78 back in the 80s to actually address solid waste. So the point of it is to try to make disposal of solid waste convenient and consistent for all Vermonters. And it's primarily focusing on two material types: recyclables and compostables, or organic material that includes food scraps and leaf and yard debris and clean wood, all of those organic materials. So as Lauren said, our recycling rate is at about somewhere between 30, 34, 36%, which actually parallels that of the nation. As a nation, we're only recycling in the 30% range as well. So we've got a lot of materials that we're landfilling that we could pull out of there to use more efficiently and appropriately. So diverting those recyclable materials and those organics to a higher and better use to reduce the amount of landfill space that we're filling up, since we do only have the one landfill left here in Vermont.
How are you going to do that, though, for every Vermonter? Because now everyone's going to have their own system, as we found out, how to divert those materials from the garbage.
So there's not going to be garbage police per se. The impetus of it, the strategy for the universal recycling law is to educate people and do a lot of outreach and inform them about this new law. And it's also an incentivized law as well. So it uses mandates and landfill bans, and it requires that the cost of recycling to be free, actually. So the cost of trash will probably increase, but recycling will be free. So hopefully that will motivate people to take a second look at what they're throwing away or what they're disposing, to pause and think, you know, this is probably recyclable. And since I'm not going to pay for that, I'm going to make sure that I put everything that I can recycle in the recyclables, which is going to reduce the amount of trash that people will be paying for to dispose of.
And how does Act 148 impact schools?
Another piece of the law is that public spaces and public buildings need to have recycling bins paired with every trash can that's located in the building or on their campus per se. So that's probably going to be one of the bigger checks for schools, is to check the setup of their disposal stations across the building, throughout the building. And I'm happy to report that the majority of our schools within the Lamoille Solid Waste District are already recycling to some degree or another, but we all have room for improvement. Like Lucy said in the video, 20% of the one group's trash audit was food waste, so we can pull that out of there. So we have room for improvement everywhere. So cleaning up their recycling systems will be important. And then the other big piece for schools is probably going to come in 2020, which seems like it's a long ways away, but it'll be here quickly. And that's diverting the food scraps and organics. So some schools are doing a little bit of composting and diverting right now, but that's probably going to be another area where schools are really going to have to make some changes.
Now, Laura, why get involved in the issue of waste management, and how does that develop leadership skills in these young people?
Right. So in my role as the Teen and Leadership Program Coordinator, I'm always looking for opportunities to develop leadership skills in our young people, but do it in a real world, real problem solving way. And it just happens that Ellie and I work in the same building. I'm very aware of what goes on in the solid waste world. And with Act 148 impacting schools and knowing how overcommitted teachers and school administrators are, I really saw this as a prime opportunity for students to really take the lead in this, and it impacts them more. That's their space every day, 8+ hours, 5 days a week or more. And so they're the ones creating most of the waste. Let them figure out how to create the solutions to get the compostables out, get the recyclables out. And when you start at a younger age, hopefully this then will translate into behaviors that they'll carry through their entire life. And when you have teens setting these examples, younger students will look up to them. So it might actually begin to impact, middle and elementary schools. But the leadership skills really do get developed because, again, they have to do a waste audit. There are skills that are happening there. They have to create an action plan, to create a budget, implementation. So there's skills, problem solving, teamwork, communication, critical thinking, all of these important life skills that we know our young people need to acquire to transition successfully from youth to adulthood. They will be developing through this project. And the added bonus of working on a real problem that schools need to address.
Exactly. Well, Ellie, are there resources available to help Vermont communities achieve the goals of Act 148?
Absolutely. The Agency of Natural Resources has a lot of resources there, and there you can find them at recycle.vermont.gov. And always consult with your local solid waste planning entity, whether that's a district or an alliance. Most solid waste districts will have resources available as well.
And so, Lauren, how can viewers learn more about the UVM Extension's 4-H teen leadership programs?
Yep, we have a website, which is www.uvm.edu/extension/teen leadership, or call our 4-H office at 1-866-260-5603.
I want to thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.